As I pointed out earlier also, when the National Health Mission came, for example, till that time there was no health infrastructure at all, no health personnel actually, abysmal level of health service. So by 2005 when NRHM came till about 2007-8, we were wondering whether we should be duplicating government systems or not. By 2007 to 10, we said, no, let's just wait and strengthen the ASHAs, the accredited social health activists, because they were some of our own health workers, the barefoot doctors had become ASHAs. We will support them, all of them. We unionized them, we trained them, and then started withdrawing from that because we didn't want to duplicate a system. So we looked and we felt that there was a big gap in mental illnesses, the care for mental illnesses, because it was affecting not just the patients, but at least one more person in the family who has to look after, because they're scared, if this person runs away from the home or has got epilepsy and may collapse sometime. So what happens? So we identified that and we realized that given the state of government services, to get psychiatric services universally everywhere, it'll take another 20 years, 25 years. So we said, let's enter at least mental illness care, and that, luckily, as I said, by 2007 we had already entered it, and we still feel that we have a role to play in that. I think, though it was in the back of our minds, and we also knew that we have to be long-term players in the region before people will trust us for our stands, which have to be ethical, which have to be constitutional, and yet human-like, which understand why people are going into conflict. So that has helped out over a period of time, because we don't go to the media and speak out, but often we show the mirror to each community while talking to them. Pointing out where they also need to reflect upon their role in increasing the conflict. So it's scary sometimes for people, but it's worked out almost every time with us. And we have managed to help out during the Bodo Muslim conflict, the Bodo Adivasi conflict, and not just us. I mean, the communities that we worked with, the women that we worked with, sometimes, broke through the ceiling at that time and just decided that we've had enough of the conflict and we're going to break. We are going to meet together and dance together and eat together. Right, so that's been nice, because constantly in all our programs we try and get communities together. Because these days with social media and others, you can paint a picture, your enemy as the other community as the enemy. Yeah. Whereas when people meet together, they play together, they eat together, they realize very often that the person from the other community was probably better than somebody from your own community or your own relative. So in that sense, people get across that, religion is not everything, or the language is not everything. So we try, and in all our programs, we get people together. For example, I would say that, we had this lovely game that we have called Ultimate Frisbee, which came into Borderlands. So while the Indian version of Frisbee had already made a 50-50 partnership of men and women in the team. So there had to be 10 boys and 10 girls, or 10 women and 10 men in the team. We went one step further and we said, they can continue playing like that, but if they have to play our tournament, there have to be 3 religions represented in the team and 3 languages represented in the team. Till that time, you cannot play in the tournament. So suddenly there were people who were reaching out to the other community to, and to make that other person comfortable. And in this journey, I think, they also loved it, because otherwise they had only, many of these community people had never played with another community, and they had all kinds of demons in their brains about the other. And so we see that, I think over a period of another 20 years, this will be a much, much better place than what we came in with. Right? I'm not saying that they were bad people, but when it came to cross-community ideation, I think it was very, very misplaced. And I think people are learning. As I told you earlier, this whole English-based documentation that I feel, prevents us from really making experienced people in charge of certain things, because, the documentation, the returns, filing, all that is getting more and more complicated by the day. 2, I think in the environment in where some NGOs maybe have played around with money or this thing, are being painted black by the government agencies and now the media itself. So that is making documentation even worse for us, for the same amount of documentation is not even done by the government as much as what the NGOs are supposed to keep. And so very often, it is that your time gets wasted. A good heart, a good brain gets wasted in filling up forms and documentation rather than, engaging with people and transferring what we have learned as educated people, discussing it with this thing to come to a common understanding and start work. So that's where I think, we are facing a challenge, and I think we need to, as the society, we need to come up with an answer. I think one more thing I would say is that if I look at NGOs in Bangladesh or even in Pakistan, even in Nepal, I would say, people there in the NGO sector would get better salaries than the government sector. Here, we believe that NGOs, the people in the NGOs must get very low salaries, and they probably must wear torn clothes and, not have gadis to work on or laptops. The moment we are seen with that, we are seen to be, as if we are stealing money. I think the mindset in the community forces me to keep my staff poor so that they are not seen to be, stealing money. They're not stealing money, but yet I think, they deserve much better for their work that they're providing. I think it's a work in progress at this moment. But for the first step we have done is that we realized that the way the primary education was structured all over the country, it presumes that by the time a child gets into the first standard, he or she has already has got a working knowledge of 500 words. But unfortunately, in a place like Chirang or all over Assam, which has got 175, Assam has got 175 languages. So, and we have only 2 language schools, either Bodo, and all the others have to study in Assamese. So when they start attending, the Santalis, the Nepalis, the Bengalis, even the Kusajunsis, the official language which comes in the textbook is very, very different. And so they have working knowledge of not more than 10 words. With the result that teachers are unable to get across to the children, and these children remain, they do very poorly, in the examination systems. So what we have done is trying to get, the technique for second language acquisition. So those techniques into a curriculum, which we are now training the government teachers, the Assamese teachers, so that they can get across to Nepali students and Santali students, and also whatever is in the curriculum, some words of it, with pictures and whatnot, how to get across, and so that children will learn faster and acquire the Assamese language as their second tongue at least. Yeah, I think one thing we need to understand is that, as I said earlier also, there's a lot of good community feeling all across the Northeast. People really volunteer for their own communities, their own villages, quite common. But it usually does not cross boundaries of the community, the language, even the tribe. And that's where we felt that, if we have to have a common constitution where people treat each other equally and have equal respect for each other, I think we need to intervene a bit more. And I think, and many of the conflicting organizations or organizations which were feeding into the conflict were very often single community organizations. So not only have we, in our own area, we've also talked and we worked quite seriously, sincerely along with community-based students' organizations, and helped them to come away from violence and away from the Bandh culture and whatnot. But we also felt that if we do that to many other with many other small social service organizations, and I'm deliberately using this word social service because there are lots of people all over India, I think, who believe in working for the society, and I would call that social service. But moving them from social service to social work, where it's a more professional approach, where there are ways in which to talk to people, not feed them with ideas, but generate ideas by dialoguing with them. So, and also reaching certain constitutional goals. Because very often, when we are only talking about our own community, our own religion, our own language, we get stuck with our traditions, and we forget that traditions and customs are also dynamic. They keep moving with times. And if you are trying to build a nation like India, which is in fact a multinational state, it's an international state, where we need to definitely have space for other communities, other languages and all. And that's where I think our work with other communities and other NGOs, or these, usually we pick up NGOs where we look at people with fire in their belly, which are led by passionate people, and help those organizations go to scale, where they can access more funds from other people. And meanwhile, at their base, they have put in all the structures, the institutional structures and the value systems which are required for a good social work organization.